I sat at the back of the grand banquet hall, my hands clenched into fists beneath the tablecloth, nails pressing into my palm to keep my emotions in check. Chandeliers sparkled overhead, their golden glow illuminating the neatly arranged tables, the perfectly folded napkins, the rows of wine glasses clinking together in celebration. At the center of it all stood my parents, their arms proudly around my older sister Elena, as if they had sculpted her themselves into the perfect daughter, flawless and untouchable. "Ladies and gentlemen," my father's voice echoed through the hall, commanding the attention of the guests. He raised his glass, a broad smile stretching across his face. "Tonight, we celebrate the greatest achievement of our daughter Elena, who has once again proven that hard work and intelligence lead to success. She has made us proud in every way possible." Applause followed, loud and enthusiastic. Elena beamed, playing her role effortlessly, the golden child in every sense of the word. I glanced down at my untouched plate, my appetite long gone. "She has been an exceptional student since she was little," my mother continued, her voice filled with admiration. "Straight A's, scholarships, internships at prestigious firms. It's no surprise she's already landed a dream job even before graduation." A fresh wave of claps and cheers filled the room, and I tried to sink further into my chair, wishing to disappear completely. I should have been used to this by now. I should have been prepared. But then my father chuckled, shaking his head, as if reminiscing about something humorous. "You know, if we had known we'd get a daughter as perfect as Elena, we might have stopped at one child." The room erupted in laughter. My stomach twisted violently. "Seriously," my mother added with a wide smile, "second-borns tend to be a little, well, let's just say, unnecessary." Another round of laughter. My ears rang. I scanned the room, searching desperately for a pair of eyes that might reflect even a shred of sympathy. But all I saw were smiles, amused expressions, people nodding as if this was just harmless banter. I forced a smile, swallowing the lump in my throat. It had always been like this. I had always been the afterthought, the one who was never quite enough. I was the child who could never measure up, the daughter who didn't shine the way Elena did. But this, saying it so openly, in front of all these people, I felt exposed, humiliated. As if that wasn't enough, my mother clapped her hands together. And of course, we had to get her a graduation present worthy of her achievements. A waiter rolled out a velvet-covered stand. When my father removed the fabric, a sleek, polished key rested on a small pillow. "A brand new Tesla, Elena," he announced proudly. Elena gasped, covering her mouth. "Oh my God, Mom, Dad, this is too much." "Nonsense," my father said. "You deserve it." More applause, more cheers. My mother wiped away fake tears of joy. I sat there frozen, watching it all unfold, wondering how much longer I could pretend this didn't hurt. I wasn't jealous of Elena. I never had been. She had always been the golden child, and I had accepted that a long time ago. But hearing my parents say in front of everyone that they regretted having me, that was different. That was something I couldn't ignore. I had spent my entire life trying not to care. I had buried my disappointment, swallowed my resentment, convinced myself that if I just worked harder, if I just achieved more, they would see me too. But they never did. And tonight, for the first time, I realized they never would. Something inside me snapped. I took a deep breath, pushed back my chair, and stood up. The chatter around me faded. My parents turned to look at me, confused, as if they had forgotten I was even here. I smiled, a slow, deliberate smile that felt foreign even to me. Then, in a voice loud enough for everyone to hear, I said, "Thank you, Mom and Dad. You finally made it clear what I've always known. I was never wanted. So tonight, I want to give you both a gift, too." My father frowned. "Lena, don't make a scene." I pulled out an envelope from my bag and placed it on the table in front of them. "I got a full scholarship," I said, "to my dream college, a full ride. I'll be moving across the country next week. I thought I should let you know before I disappear from your lives completely." Silence. My mother's eyes widened, her lips parting slightly. Elena's brows furrowed. My father's face turned pale. I leaned in, lowering my voice just enough so only they could hear. Congratulations, Mom and Dad. You finally don't have to waste any more time or money on your second-born mistake. And with that, I turned on my heel and walked out, leaving them behind, leaving all of it behind, without looking back. I walked out of the banquet hall and into the cold night air, my heart pounding in my chest. The laughter and applause inside continued without me, but I no longer cared. I had spent years trying to ignore their favoritism, trying to pretend that it didn't matter. But tonight, something inside me had broken beyond repair. As I reached my car, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out and saw my mother's name flashing on the screen. I let it ring. Then came a text. "Come back inside. You're embarrassing yourself." I laughed bitterly. Of course, that was her concern. Not that I had spent my entire life feeling unwanted. Not that they had openly humiliated me in front of everyone, but that I was now making them look bad. A second later, another text popped up. "We need to talk." No, we didn't. I got into my car, tossing my phone onto the passenger seat. As I sat there gripping the steering wheel, I felt the weight of everything crashing down on me at once. But for the first time in years, I felt free. The next few days passed in a blur. I packed my bags, finalized my college paperwork, and ignored every call and text from my parents. Elena reached out once. "Hey, I think you're overreacting." Mom and Dad didn't mean it like that. I stared at her message for a long time before replying. "Of course you'd say that. You've never been on the other side." She never responded. Moving day arrived faster than I expected. As I loaded the last of my things into my car, I heard the front door swing open behind me. "You're really leaving?" I turned to see my father standing on the porch, arms crossed. "That's what I said, isn't it?" He exhaled sharply, as if he had been holding back frustration. "This is childish, Lena. Running away just because of one little joke?" I let out a short, humorless laugh. "One little joke?" I repeated. "Dad, that wasn't a joke. That was the truth. Your truth. You just finally said it out loud." He opened his mouth to argue, but I held up a hand. "Save it. I don't want an apology. I don't want excuses. I just want to leave." His jaw tightened. "Fine. Go then. But don't expect us to come running when things don't work out." I smiled, stepping closer until I was right in front of him. "That's the difference between us," I said. "I never expected you to come running in the first place." I turned, got into my car, and pulled out of the driveway without looking back. College was everything I had hoped it would be. For the first time in my life, I wasn't living in my sister's shadow. No one knew me as Elena's younger sister. No one treated me like an afterthought. I made friends. I studied hard. I built a life for myself, one that was mine. My parents reached out occasionally, mostly out of obligation. Birthday texts that felt forced. Christmas cards with generic messages. I never responded. And then one day, after almost 2 years of silence, I got a call from an unknown number. I ignored it. A minute later, a voicemail notification popped up. Curious, I pressed play. "Lena, it's Mom. We need to talk. It's about Elena. Please call me back." Elena. My stomach twisted. For the first time in years, I hesitated. I had cut them off completely. I had moved on. But Elena had never been cruel to me, not the way my parents were. She had been blind, sure, and ignorant of my pain, but she wasn't evil. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. Against my better judgment, I called back. My mother picked up immediately. "Lena," she breathed, as if she hadn't expected me to answer. "What happened?" I asked, skipping the pleasantries. There was silence on the other end before she finally said, "It's Elena. She needs help." I closed my eyes. "Wachti, what kind of help?" Another pause. "She's struggling," my mother admitted, her voice cracking. "She's lost her job. She's not doing well. We don't know what to do." I didn't say anything, because for the first time in their lives, my parents had to deal with the fact that their perfect daughter wasn't perfect anymore. And now, suddenly, they needed me. When I arrived at their house, I barely recognized Elena. She was thinner than before, dark circles under her eyes, her usual confidence replaced by something fragile and broken. "Lena," she whispered when she saw me. I sat across from her. "Tell me everything," I said. And she did. She told me about the pressure, the expectations, the way our parents had always pushed her to be perfect, how she had spent her entire life being the daughter they needed her to be until one day she couldn't do it anymore. I listened. I didn't judge. When she was done, she wiped her eyes and gave me a shaky smile. "I used to think you were the unlucky one," she admitted, "but now I see it. You were free. You didn't have to be what they wanted." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "We were both unlucky." She nodded, and for the first time, I saw her as a person, not just the golden child. We sat there in silence, both of us realizing just how much damage had been done. Our parents stood in the doorway, watching us, waiting. And in that moment I knew. They weren't sorry for how they had treated me. They weren't sorry for making me feel like I didn't belong. They were only sorry now that Elena had fallen apart, and they had no idea how to fix her. In the end, I helped Elena. Not for them, never for them, but because she was my sister. I helped her find a therapist. I helped her get back on her feet. I helped her see that she didn't have to be perfect to be worth something. But my parents? I left them behind. They had spent their entire lives prioritizing Elena over me. And now, for the first time, I chose myself. It took years, but I built a life I was proud of. And when I looked in the mirror, I no longer saw the forgotten child I saw me. Whole, free, enough. I sat by the window of my new apartment, watching the city lights flicker against the dark sky. It had been months since I last spoke to my parents. Months since I walked away from the house where I had spent years feeling invisible. I thought maybe by now, the ache would have dulled. But it hadn't. Not entirely. Sometimes, late at night, I still heard their voices in my head. My father's dismissive tone. My mother's cold indifference. The endless comparisons to Elena. But then I thought of Elena herself. She was trying. Really trying. Therapy had helped, and she was slowly rebuilding her life. We weren't as close as some sisters, and maybe we never would be. But she was no longer the perfect, untouchable daughter in my parents' eyes. She was human, flawed like me. And in that, we had finally found something real between us. My phone buzzed beside me. A message from her. "I know I haven't said it enough, but thank you for being there for me. I'm sorry for not seeing things sooner. I hope one day we can really be okay." I smiled, a small, sad kind of smile. Maybe we could, maybe not. But at least now, there was a chance. As for my parents, the last I heard, they were struggling. Their reputation had taken a hit after news of Elena's downfall spread among their friends. They had spent years building an image of a perfect family, only for it to crumble in an instant. They tried to reach out a few more times, but their messages weren't filled with apologies or understanding, only guilt trips and half-hearted justifications. I never answered. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't waiting for them to change. I had simply moved on. I sipped my tea, letting the warmth settle in my chest, and realized something. For the first time in my life, I wasn't chasing after love that would never come. I wasn't trying to prove my worth to people who refused to see it. I was enough, all on my own. And that was freedom. What do you think? Have you ever walked away from people who never truly valued you? Do you believe in second chances, or are some relationships just too broken to fix? Let me know in the comments. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.